And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
Today's guest is Jill Maria. Jill had a near-death experience where she encountered a supernatural being, and today we're going to learn about it. Jill, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. So, if you don't mind, can we start on the day that your NDE happened and go from there?
Sure. I really don't know what day it was. I was just 5 years old, approximately. And I don't know what time it was. I know it was daylight. I was extremely sick. I had double pneumonia, both lungs. And subsequently, much later in life, I found out I probably had pericarditis, which is the inflammation of the membrane around your heart, because I have an electrical anomaly in my EKG, which is normal for me now, but isn't something that you're born with or not genetic. So what I remember was the experience itself. Now, let me preface this by saying that this wasn't a febrile hallucination. It wasn't because I had a high fever. I had a febrile hallucination at the age of 9 when I had measles. And I remember it very clearly. And it was nothing like this experience. So this was not febrile related. I was presumably asleep. NDE to me, I really doubt that I physically died, but I absolutely had what I call an apparition. It was in a dream state. It wasn't hypnagogic. It wasn't something that I created. I was a little girl. I couldn't have done that, and I wouldn't have done that at that time. And I've been psychic my entire life, so this was not that. And what I remember about it was I was surrounded by what I describe as like brown velvet or a chocolatey brown substance, some sort of it wasn't non-threatening, a neutral environment. And to my right, there was what I perceived as a woman. Now, at that age, a woman would have been the safest way for some spiritual entity to present to me. A man would have threatened me. So a woman was a good way to approach me. And this woman was surrounded, not even surrounded, encapsulated by and exuded an energy that I'll call a light, but it wasn't a light. It was an essence. It was all encompassing. It was the absolute spirit that was presenting itself to me in a physical form that as a very, very young child wouldn't threaten me. It didn't ever threaten me or frighten me. And she spoke to me. Now, I can't tell you if I heard it or it was telepathic, but I heard it. I mean, I experienced it. I absorbed it. And so people have asked me, because this was a very long time ago, many decades, what did she sound like? There wasn't a sound. There was almost, the only thing I can describe it as is if you imagine or you hear the sound of the planets. I mean, now there are all kinds of apps that do that. It was every sound, every beautiful thing in one, but with a personality, with a message. So she communicated to me my entire life. She told me and prepared me for my entire life. I can't say that I consciously remembered everything, because that's not true. But everything we experience in any form of consciousness, we retain, because the entirety of consciousness is actually engraved in creation. So I never forgot. It never left me. And as it unfolded in my lifetime, I made connections to what she had told me. And I understood this was what I was prepared for. She told me God, because remember, I'm a little girl and I was being raised in the Roman Catholic tradition. So, and I perceived her as the Blessed Mother, the Virgin Mary, although I know that's not who it was. So she told me God will never leave you, and gave me visions of the future, so that for my entire lifetime, I've anticipated worldwide catastrophe, which I still do, that I think I might actually live to see, and prepared me for certain events in my lifetime that were extremely traumatic and that I actually survived. And I think because of this experience. Now, what I do remember in the real world, in our corporeal world, was my earthly mother shaking me. I remember waking up, and I remember it was daylight, but I'm just 5, so I don't know what time it is. I don't know what day it is. I don't know even what month it is. And I said to her, leave me alone. I want to stay with the lady. And that wasn't something that I would ever have done, because my parents were very big authority figures to me. I never would have spoken to her that way. But she and I had this conversation when I was in my late 40s. And I remembered, and she remembered. And so, like, what I wanted to do was stay there. I didn't want to be in this reality. I wanted to stay with that entity because it was absolutely perfect and not requiring a thing. And so that's what I remember about that. An NDE, no, I wasn't dying. You don't have to be in a state of presently, medically pronounced dead to have an experience like this. Although I'm sure I know there are people who have, and whatever. It wasn't delusional. It wasn't hallucinatory. I didn't induce it. It happened to me, and it stayed with me for my entire life, and it informed me for my entire life. And since very early childhood, before then, I'd been psychic, and I used to do readings, and I even did psychic mediumship once, totally by accident. So I have absolutely no doubt that this is not all there is.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And when you first described the place as chocolatey, it made me think that each person who has an experience like you is different, but it's also kind of tailored towards them. And you being a little girl, and maybe you had a sweet tooth, would see chocolate.
It's true. It was also just kind of velvety, like soft and not in any way threatening. It was, in other words, it was neutral. Mm-hmm. Totally new. It wasn't dark. That would have terrified me. So it was totally neutral. And the only thing I could focus on was this entity to my right, who was spectacularly beautiful without having any visage. So it's like, if you said, well, what did she look like? It doesn't make any difference what she looked like. Mm-hmm. And what did she sound like? It doesn't make any difference. All of that is here. None of that is there. So we translate it, but it really isn't important.
Now, you're saying that you weren't sure if you heard it or what, but is it possible that you felt it? Like some people describe it as even feeling or the sound vibrating through them when they hear someone communicating with them.
There was a voice, and it was feminine, but it was like beautiful. It was like a choir. It was like everything beautiful that you've ever heard that means something to you. Bird song, crickets, whatever. It was like everything beautiful and safe was in that voice. That experience was tailored for me. It was, I'm absolutely certain of it. And, you know, I've never really thought of it this way until this very moment. That experience was designed to hold me and make me feel safe and loved and give me information that I absolutely needed to survive this life, which has not been easy. And there was a purpose behind it and a great love behind it and such safety and such warmth that's why I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to leave her.
Mm-hmm.
So it was tailored for me. And I'm wondering if everyone's experience that's genuine has been tailored for that individual, which would explain why so many people have such different experiences.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Now, I know you said that it wasn't the Blessed Virgin Mary. Is it possible it was a guardian angel or a relative that you don't remember or never met?
It didn't feel familiar in a sense of an ancestral thing. I ascribed it to me, it was the Blessed Mother. And I was very little, and to me, I always called her the Blessed Mommy. And I've been to Lourdes 4 times and to Fatima once, so like it's not like I'm not familiar with that personage. I don't know if that's who it was. I'm not a Roman Catholic, transcended all of that, but that doesn't mean she doesn't exist, because I think very much believe that if billions of people place faith in a certain thing, isn't there some place where consciousness creates that entity for us? I mean, we're all billions of people. So, that personage was very real to me, and the ultimate mother. So, who it was, what it was, I have no idea. I really can't even conjecture. I mean, angels, I think I've met angels in physical form here and there in my lifetime as humans. One time especially, I'm pretty much sure that was an angel. But guides, maybe, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what to call it. Her, him, it.
It sounds like this being gave you information of your personal future. Can you share with us some of the things that you were told that have come to pass, as well as can you share what this big catastrophe that may be coming is?
Well, in terms of personal life, I was given a number, and the number was 23. And I didn't understand the significance or even the reality of this particular number until, I'm going to say, maybe I was in my 40s, and I lived 6 lifetimes by then. I mean, pretty much, if I have to tell you that in this lifetime, I've lived probably 6 or 7 lifetimes, that wouldn't be an outrageous thing to say. And it's not an egotistical thing to say. It's my experience. I've reinvented myself that many times. So the number 23 became extremely important to me. And I began to realize that on the 23rd of certain months and certain years, things that were extremely difficult and potentially devastating happened to me. And then I came to a place in my life where the number 23 represented something almost life-ending. My daughter was 23. When she reached the age of 23, I knew I was going to lose her because of, an illness that she had that I really don't want to discuss. And she crossed over on the second day of the 3rd month, March 2nd. And she called me at 3:23 and 4:23 p.m. that day. And pretty much I knew that when she reached 23 and all of this was occurring, I knew this was the 23 that I had been prepared for. And all of the other 23s that were minor catastrophes and something I couldn't forget, life-changing things, had prepared me, and that this was the number that was given to me because I needed to survive that day. I needed to survive that day. I don't know why, but I need to be here, and I don't know why. And I think that that's probably something that entity told me, but I don't think I'm supposed to know that. And I've actually been visited by my daughter once in physical form, and 4 other times in not a dream state, because the dream was over there and she was here. And the last time we had a very long conversation. And during that conversation, because of our relationship was so emotionally intimate and we loved each other so much, she probably told me stuff I'm not supposed to know, because a lot of it I don't remember. So like she probably told me, this is what you're supposed to do. This is what I mean, that would have been like her. Mom, this is what said. I'm not supposed to know that because I don't think we're supposed to be able to connect with that knowledge. If we were to connect with it, how could we ever live it through? We would be so impaired by the reality and I'm supposed to do this. When am I supposed? Just think about that. It would totally disable us. So like, we're not supposed to know. We're supposed to live into it and do our best. And my whole entire lifetime, I call it creator consciousness now, because the word God has been so abused. I've said to God, or Hashem, if you want to use the Judaic name, which I really actually prefer, don't ever let my feet leave the path toward your purpose for my life. No matter what it takes, you keep me on that path. Now, when you say something like that, you're throwing out the fleece, as the evangelical Christians say. You're giving creator consciousness access to do anything, including things that are going to be horrific in this present life experience. And that's what I've always done. Don't ever let my feet leave the path, because I want to do what I'm supposed to do in this lifetime, because I don't know that I actually ascribe to reincarnation, but I have been regressed to a past life, which I actually remembered before the regression. I don't want to do this again. I have a feeling that I came into the world with everything. I came into the world with so much, and I was prevented by so much stuff came at me from such an early age that tried to stop me. But I think that this might be it. I don't want to do this again. Mm-hmm. So I really want to stay on the path.
You mentioned that you met an angel in real life, in corporeal form. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, but let me go back to your former question just for 1 second. When you asked about this premonition that I've had.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, since a little early girlhood, I was afraid of planes flying over at night, and I'm a baby boomer. So like, yeah, I'm an atom bomb baby. So that could have been, socially, culturally, whatever. But I'm not the only one, because I know other people kind of like me in some way. I really have a very strong suspicion that in the next few years, we're going to see a nuclear event. And I think it's probably going to be in the Middle East, and it's going to be worldwide, catastrophic. And I'm really anticipating that. And so that's what I see coming. There's something coming. Now, a couple of years ago, I said to someone, something's coming right at us. And I wasn't envisioning COVID, but this isn't it. There's something behind it, and it's not far away. And now, my UFO experience, is this extraterrestrial? No, they're benign. That's not it. This is something earth-based, and I think it's coming right at us. Now, about the angel, when my daughter was about 18 months old, my mother lived in Manhattan. I grew up in Greenwich Village. I owned a home on Long Island. I had gone to visit her, And it was just like like an early fall day. My windows were rolled up, the AC was on, and I was crossing 12th Street, going towards Second Avenue, First Avenue, so I could go up toward the Midtown Tunnel. And I approached an intersection, I think it was Broadway and 12th Street, and the traffic was kind of slow. And I had like dollars and dimes and quarters on my dashboard. Through the mirror, and I looked to my left, and there was a man who I would describe as a homeless man. Now, this was 1988. Standing there, young man, and now I have my 18-month-old daughter in the back seat, and I just got, whenever I hear that voice, I listen. The voice said, "Give him the money." It's not, I don't hear it with my ears. I can't describe it. So like I hit the button and my window came down, and I wrapped my hand around all the money I had on the dashboard, and I handed it to him. And in that moment, I made eye contact with this person. And what I saw was amazingly beautiful. I mean, there was something in his eyes. There was a moment in time where our souls just slammed. And in that moment, I realized this isn't human. And then the traffic, I had to follow. They're honking. So and then I went around the block. I sped around the block like a maniac because I had to find this guy, right? I had to find this guy. Nowhere to be seen. Nowhere to be seen. That was the first time. The second time was sometime in 2010, upstate here where I live now. And I was driving along, and I looked to a Stewart's, which is kind of our 7-Eleven, and there was a man there with a dog, and the voice said, "Go in there." And I went in there, and I rolled down the window, and I said to him, "Can I help you?" This is a young man, maybe 20, 22, 25. And he came over to me, and he said, his dog was limping. He said, "I'm trying to get home." I said, "Well, where is home?" And he told me, I think he said Wyoming. So I gave him a bunch of 20s that I had, and I handed them to him. And then I pulled out, and I said to myself, wait a minute. I never have a lot of money with me, but I had $140 in my wallet. I said, no, this isn't good enough. I have to give it all to him, and I have to give him my phone number. He's going to need me. So I turned around, and I went back. He was nowhere to be seen. And this is like a big road. It's like 212. I mean, it's like there's no way he disappeared that fast in 3 minutes. There's no way. So that was another.
Well, tell us about your UFO experience.
Oh my gosh. I've been working for the last few days with people who are like commercial pilots and meteorologists, and all of us trying to define for you what happened. So like it was November 19th, 2012. And I remember the date because November 19th is an important date in my life. Not, like a bad, but something that happened that I remember. And I was on the NY State Thruway. And I was going from my exit to the next, which is between exit 20 and 19. And I was going south. And it was 11:50 a.m. because I looked at my the clock on my and I'm driving in the right lane, 65 miles per hour. And there's a glint, like I'm driving. It's like, whoa, what? And I flipped up my visor and looked in the sky, and there is an enormous saucer sitting stationary in the sky. Now, it wasn't on top of me. So I figured that out since then. Enormous. And when you see all the illustrations, it wasn't like that. It was like there was a slight thing on the top and a slight thing on the bottom, and the middle was very thick. It was huge. And I thought, oh my, what? And I couldn't take my eyes off it. And I'm driving, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to kill somebody here. So, and then I thought, well, what time is it? I looked at the clock. It was 11:50. It was a beautiful blue sky, except for what I now know is called an alto cumulus cloud in the sky behind this saucer. And I thought to myself, I couldn't believe it. It was like hilarious. I can't describe the joy, the awe, because I've seen them before, but nothing like that. I mean, I thought I saw them. Oh my God. And it was like, just, oh, wow. I mean, it was absolutely fantastic. And I'm driving and I'm looking. I mean, we're talking about traffic. It's close to noon. It's a Monday. This is a New York State Thruway. Nobody was slowing down. I didn't see people going like this, like I was. It was like, what's happening here? Then the road kind of curved. I kind of lost sight of it for a second. And when I saw it again, it rocked. It went a little this way, a little that way, and then it started to move toward that alto cumulus cloud. And then I got off. When it rocked, I got the distinct impression that there was a consciousness exchange. Whoever was in there, many of them, many more than one, hundreds, maybe more, acknowledged me. I'm wondering, was it cloaked? Did they uncloak for me? Was I the only person that saw that thing? Now, they're up here. There are a lot of sightings like that. So, was I the only person that saw it? Was this personal? Was it some sort of communicate? What was that? And it's like, in that moment where I saw it rock, it was like, if you've ever had a small plane go over your head and rock at you because you're waving at it frantically, that's how it felt to me. And then it moved. Now, when I got to where I was going, I parked my car, and what's in front of me? The alto cumulus cloud. And toward it, coming up from the ground, was a commercial plane. The commercial plane was crossing somewhere in front of the alto cumulus cloud, certainly not going into it. You'd have to be insane to do that in a clear blue sky. I measured it in my mind. That plane was probably that big, 1.5 inches, 2 inches. The alto cumulus cloud was a big puffy thing. It wasn't a big long thing. That's a whole different thing. And it was probably, I don't know, 10, 15 times bigger than the commercial plane. That's how big the UFO was. 10 times. Now, a commercial pilot told me even a 737 is going to be 100 feet long. So that cloud must have been at least 1,000 feet long. And the commercial plane was climbing. It takes 20 minutes for a commercial plane to climb to cruising altitude. It was clearly going to cruising altitude and not yet achieving it. So, and I know where it came from. It came out of Albany Airport. It was going toward JFK. There's no international flights from Albany. So it was going toward JFK. It was probably already climbing for 10 minutes. So it was probably maybe 5 minutes to 10 minutes away from cruising altitude. That cloud was at least 1.35 miles away from where I was. So that cloud was 1.35 miles up in the air, and at least 40 miles away from where I was sitting in the parking lot. So that means when I was on the New York State Thruway, the cloud was a mile up high and was probably about 40 miles away. So this saucer was huge. This wasn't some little thing that you see, down the field. This thing was huge. And I've never forgotten it. I can still see it. And sometimes when I'm driving, I talk to them because I know that they have to hear me. There was a consciousness exchange. So I say to them, I'm a pretty interesting human being. I'm very complex and I'm really interesting. You could use me. So could you just like tell me where to meet you? Because I'd like to get on board at this point. I have a lot to offer as a human being. It's like, it sounds so stupid and irrational, but this was once in a lifetime. And there are people who pursue these things, and I've been members of groups, and oh my God, I've told my story on the internet. I mean, it's like, there are people who spend their entire lives looking for these things and never have this experience. And there it was given to me like the best Christmas present you could ever have. I'll never forget it. I know they're real. These entities are real. That particular experience was benign. It wasn't frightening. I wouldn't be afraid of them. I don't know about the others. I'm pretty sure there are others. I think they're interdimensional, but I don't really know. Mm-hmm. So there you have it. I mean, I have a lifelong psychic thing going on here. And then I have this. And that was like almost 9 years ago. It was 2009. So it's more than that. And it's like yesterday.
A few weeks ago, I had a guest that he spotted a UFO right over the freeway as well in Michigan. It was like right there, and cars were just blowing right past it. And I think
so there you have it. I'm not alone.
Yeah.
That man was chosen too. So what's that all about? Who are we? Why are we? You know, it would be a good idea to get us all together in one time and see what we have in common. What are we? Who are we? That they're you. I'm going to show myself to you right now. I mean, what? What is that? Mm-hmm. Why? You know, this is what I'd really like to know. And today I happened to be on the thruway, and I said, you know what? I really need to know and comprehend. I need to hear your idea, your concept of creator consciousness. What is God to you? What is your experience? Because to me, these things are so much more advanced than we'll ever. We're like ants compared to that. It's like I really want that exchange, because I think that that's something that I really need to know. And I probably won't in this lifetime, but I sure would like to know. And if they ever said, come on, Jill, come on. Okay, come on, we're over here. The first thing I would say to them is, what's your concept of God? I want to hear what you think, what you've arrived at, what you've experienced, what's your interior awareness, because that's something that I really need to know, and I just can't do it.
Do you think that the NDE, or the experience you had as a child, set up your whole life for all these experiences? Like you became psychic, you're seeing angels, UFOs. Do you think that had
No, I was already that way. I was already that way.
You were already that way before.
Yeah, when I was younger than that, I saw a spirit behind my bed. And I remember telling my mother about it. And she and I, discussed this decades later. And she was so alarmed that she had my father ask the superintendent if anybody had died in the apartment. And when I was really little, 4, 5, probably even, I think about 4, I had an imaginary friend who wasn't imaginary, because I still remember crossing the street and reaching out and taking her hand. There was something there. It wasn't my imagination. So I came into the world this way. I have no idea why.
Have you heard of CE5 meetings?
No.
And I think I'm saying that correctly, but some people who like to spot UFOs, they get together and then they all meditate together first. And it's like you're connecting, you're trying to connect with the UFO spiritually and trying to show the UFO where you're at, and then the UFOs will appear. And I kind of brought that up because you were talking about that they're here interdimensionally.
Yeah, well, I'm going to look that up, because I would definitely join. And you also have to know what energy you're joining. I mean, it's like when people say, well, pray for me. Don't pray for me, because I don't know what your energy is like. So it's like, basically I'd have to like kind of get a feel for who else is here. You know what I mean? Because my energy, I've got to be really careful about that. So I'd have to know who else is here, because you don't know what you're summoning. There's all kinds of things interdimensionally, all kinds of things. Some of them aren't so good. I don't want that. So it's like I'd have to know, but I actually think that we don't need to be a group. I think that individually we're part of the universal consciousness, and that includes non-local consciousness and everything that is inanimate, because everything is alive down to the subquantum level. Everything shares consciousness. And if you have to ask me, well, what do you think of creator consciousness is? That is what I think it is. It's like it is an entity that encompasses everything, and we're all part of it, and we should all share in one another. And that includes those beings in that enormous saucer I saw, and the birds that I observe, and the trees. I mean, communicating with animals and plants. And I've been doing this my whole life. So it's like, basically, I think we all have the ability, some more than others, and why that is, I really don't know. And it might be a spiritual path. I think now we're looking at a divergence. There are those on the enlightened path, and there are those who are not. And that's what the chaos is. It's the divergence. I think we're reaching a point in human history and human consciousness where there's going to be a really strict delineation, and we're going to choose one path, and the rest of them are going to have to, I don't know. I can't predict that. It's just my innate awareness. So I sound like a raving maniac, but this is my reality, and it's been my reality for my entire life.
All right. Now, you mentioned you've been a psychic your whole life, and you were a medium once. So
yes.
When you say you were a psychic your whole life, what does that mean? That means you were seeing the future, or what were you actually doing?
Telepathically. I mean, unbelievable. Well, I remember one instance where because I grew up in Greenwich Village, and my best friend also lived there, but we were separated by, like maybe 30 blocks or so. And I remember I used to get stuff in my eyes all the time for some reason. And I got something in my eye, and it was, yeah. And I went into this building I'd never seen before. And in the little marble lobby, there was a seat. I sat down, never been in this building. And I'm thinking to myself, my best friend's name was Elaine. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, if only Elaine was here. What am I doing? What needing Elaine? And Elaine appears in the doorway. And I said to her, what took you so long? In the next 15 minutes after digging out she said to me, I was crossing Houston Street. That's the last thing I remember. The next thing I know, I'm looking in the doorway, and there you are. Right? That's just one. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of events of telepathy that were so strong. It's like, yeah, I take it for granted. I started to take it for granted. So it's just something that happens to me. And what else were you asking? Oh, the psychic thing. I used to do for a short time. Well, I did readings from my 20s, and I never did it for financial gain. Not that that's something wrong with that, because there are people who can really do this, and they deserve to make a living from it. Let's face it. Should they be washing dishes? No. So anyway, at one point in time in the 90s, I decided to read tarot. Now, when you use tarot, you're not looking at the cards. They're a tool. If you do, I don't know how I don't know how they do it, but if you're really doing it, it's a tool. And what the tarot does is it gives you a kind of a framework. So it's like a canvas, and you're filling in the canvas. And what you're doing is you're tuning into the consciousness of the person you're reading. And I did it so well that people didn't want to talk to anybody else but me. At one point, I said to a woman, there's something brown and furry in your dining room. And she said, oh my God, that's my mother's mink stole. Now, come on, really? So that's remote viewing. All right. So basically, the more you do this, the better you get. And the first thing you got to do is put aside your ego. So that means what I receive, I've got to give back, even if it makes me look like a complete fool, because this isn't about me. So I was doing a reading for this man. It wasn't in person. It was over the internet. And I'm reading the normal reading, and all of a sudden, I get a snapshot. It's a movie. This is how I see things. It's a movie. And John Edward, whom I am acquainted with, he says the same thing. This is a movie. It's like a movie. You can't describe it. So I see this movie and I see these three young men dressed in camo. They're army fatigue. And they're laughing. Young men, 19, 20, 21. They're laughing. And one of them says to me, tell him he doesn't have to worry about the watch anymore. So now I never hesitated. I said to this man that I'm reading, wait a minute. I just saw three young men in army fatigues, and one of them said, tell him he doesn't have to worry about the watch anymore. This guy freaked out. He said, oh my God, I lost my brother in Vietnam. And the only thing we didn't get, I guess it was a family year, I don't know, was his watch. We didn't get his watch back. So when he said that to me, my aunt, who was like a mother to me and whom I actually really adored and who had crossed over in 1982, appeared in front of me with a big, and I knew in that moment, I'm not supposed to do this. I stopped. I didn't pursue psychic mediumship. I didn't do any more readings. I stopped. And now I know why, because all of this was intended for me and my daughter and other people who are now being led to me because I'm trying to help them to survive. It wasn't, I was using it legitimately. There wasn't a problem with that. But in that moment, when I met that young man who had crossed over so many years prior, that was, don't go any further. It didn't need to be said to me twice. So I've never done any more readings from it, even though people have asked me. I've never done them. And I realized that, yeah, psychic mediumship is real. A lot of the people who do it are really rank psychopaths or sociopaths because they're frauds. And then there are some who are really legitimate. I always know who is who, always. So I've seen maybe dozens people reading. I always know when they're fakes and I always know when they're real. It's just knowing. And it's like, I don't know what happens to the people who make believe they can do this and can't. I don't even want to think about it. But it is real. It can be done. And there is communication possible. So people who have lost loved ones should not lose hope. Your loved ones are trying to communicate with you. Whether or not they succeed has nothing to do with their love for you, or has nothing to do with you. It's just a missed opportunity, and it might be repeated. And it can be decades later. So it's like it can be moments later. So it's like basically, I know it's possible. Their consciousness survives, and so that's But since then, I still have telepathy. I still know things. I still hear things, and I receive information. I mean, I knew something was coming before COVID. I just didn't know it was viral. So and I'm not alone. I mean, there's a network of us out there tenuously connected that once in a while will say, you know what, I've got the same thing going on. So it's like a lot of people are feeling that in the next couple of years, something big is happening.
Do you think that you had any changes from your experience?
Yeah. If I hadn't had that apparition, as I call it, I wouldn't have been prepared for what happened in my life with my daughter, and I wouldn't have survived it.
What about, besides that, any other personal changes?
I've never been persuaded by religious tradition and dogma, because I've always known that this is the human attempt to comprehend creator consciousness, and this is the human need for safety. We're all terrified. And the people who don't acknowledge that will eventually. We're all terrified. And we need safety. So thinking, well, if I say this prayer, I'm safe. That makes us feel better, and that's fine. Religion is there for a reason, and it serves a very, very good purpose for billions of people throughout history. And it's beautiful in and of itself. I mean, I've been in the most spectacular places in the world, in Italy and in France and Portugal, beautiful things, beautiful cathedrals. I've seen the Pope in person. So it's like, basically, yeah, it all serves a purpose, but there's something so much bigger than that. And I think that what the most important thing is that I came into the world with all of this, and I've never lost it. And nothing ever took this away from me. It was almost as if it wasn't allowed. I'm not going to let anything take this from you, because I want you to have this in as closely in its entirety as possible, because you're going to need it. And I think there's some of us, and you're probably part of this, that are at the forefront of a movement behind us that's either going to make or destroy Homo sapiens. And we're either going to make it or we're going to be obliterated and start over. I don't know anything about that. But there's an enlightenment that's present right now and has been for my entire lifetime. And most people don't have it. And then there are those who do. And it's like we're just being pulled along. I need you. It's like something saying, I need you to stay the course, because you're just one little stitch. But if you drop that stitch, the whole fabric falls apart. There's something growing. It's something massive. It's something glorious. And we've got to keep going toward it. And the more we go toward it, the worse it's going to get behind us. The world is falling apart. We can't let that take us off this path. We can't let that happen, because it's not going to succeed. And we're not, but whatever's bringing us forward is going to succeed. So look, the faster we can accelerate with that energy, the better we are. We can't be afraid. There's really nothing to be afraid of is the ultimate thing.
And basically, we shouldn't be fearing death as well, right?
Well, there's no reason to fear death, because it does appear to me, having had that psychic mediumship experience and knowing a real psychic medium as well as I know him, and others like him, we survive. Our consciousness survives. Our personae survive in some manner, not flawed. There's legitimately, there's two choices. We either survive, which I'm fairly convinced we do, or we don't. If we don't, we'll never know it.
Right.
So what's the point, really?
Right.
I mean, there are so many people who say, listen, this really happened to me. And I know I didn't hallucinate. I haven't hallucinated my entire life, all right? And I'm not psychotic. I have no mental illness. I have no pathology. So it's like, basically, I'm experiencing something that's real. And so I'm anticipating that I saw my daughter. I'm anticipating a reunion with her, and a reunion with every living thing, a unity and an individuality as well. So it's not just blend and disappear. No, it's not like that. I'm anticipating that. But if it doesn't happen, I'll never know it. So what's the point of being afraid? It's accomplishing absolutely nothing. And if you dwell in fear, you're being dragged down. And there's something in the world that wants to drag us down. It wants to mute that voice that says we're brilliant and we are the stars. We're everything, and we're not God, but we're part of it. It wants to mute that. It wants to take the magic out of the world. There's so much incredible magic in the earth itself. When you look at the earth from space, no wonder everybody wants to come here. It's absolutely glorious. So like, there's something that wants to drag us away from that. And that's what we call evil. That's ugly and dark. Why go there? Don't go there. Fight that. And, like to go to the light, no, be the light. Just try to hang on. To really try to hang on. And I know how hard it is and how dark it can be. Believe me, if anyone knows, I know. But I also know that there's something making me keep going. You got to come on. You can do it. everybody has to try to hear that voice.
I didn't ask you, but do you have anything that you would like to promote? Do you have a book or a class or a website or anything like that?
No, I really don't. No.
Well, that's okay.
I mean, I published a book of poetry, but it's neither here nor there and has nothing to do with any of this.
Okay.
No, I don't have classes. I don't do any of that. I'm just here being me.
Well, that's okay. I find it interesting that you said you don't want to come back here, because I think some guests have said that being here is very tough, and people who are here are like spiritual warriors, because this is a tough place to be. And
Yeah.
also, I think I've seen in the comments before, or maybe even a guest has said it, or both, that I'm not coming back here again. This is it for me.
I've heard it said and read it. That this is the Earth is actually the testing ground, the ultimate last testing ground. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all, because despite a single moment and time, whatever, is basically filled with horror and fear and death. You have to look past that. And if God said to me, you got to go back, if that were capable, I'd say to him, what? So the only reason I would ever choose to come back is if my daughter's soul needed me. I think it might. So basically, that's the only reason. Other than that, I'm done, man. No, I don't want to come back. And not because the Earth isn't beautiful, because I want to spend the rest of whatever there is in a place that's beautiful and not filled with death. I'm done. You reach a point where you just say, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I mean, how much do you want? What do you want? When am I going to come back? Like crippled? Am I going to come back? I mean, how much worse could it be? I have a lifetime of amount. I don't want to do this again.
We've gone almost a full hour and you haven't started locking up. Everybody must be getting home where you're at, and they're all jumping on the internet, because you're starting to kind of lag and I'm losing.
Oh yeah, maybe you're right.
Maybe it is. I had a very long time ago, I did a podcast with a photographer from Spain, and she lived in a village, and it was like this certain time of day, everybody came home and got on the internet.
You're right.
And it just went crazy. So, and we're almost done anyway, so let's just go here. Before we finish up, do you have one last positive message you can share with everyone?
Don't judge. Try not to. It's really hard. You're entitled to your feeling, anger, frustration, disappointment, but you don't know what's inside that other person's mind and what they're experiencing and what they have experienced. You don't know. And the best thing to do is, if you can't treat somebody with tender care and respect, walk away, because you don't know. There's so really bad stuff in the consciousness of humanity right now that you really don't know. Even those people you think are, they're horrible, what kind of monster, don't judge, because you don't know. And it's only hurting you. It's from whatever beauty is available to you, because you're so engrossed in examining other people. That's really what I have to say. And it's like, it's really, really hard. I think that's probably the hardest thing to do for human beings, is to stop judging. Very, very hard. It's part of what we do. If you can do that, remember, the Christ consciousness was attributed to Yeshua, lest ye be judged. Simply, if you read maybe the 40 words that he actually spoke, you're going to find out that that's what he was talking about. You can't love everyone, because we're human and we're fallible, but you don't hate them and don't judge them. Try not to anyway. And you're going to be, much better off inside yourself and much more at peace, because it's bad enough trying to be you without trying to be everyone else at the same time.
Well, thank you for that message. I liked it. And Jill, thank you so much for being my guest. I really appreciate you, and I wish you the best.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for having me. I really enjoyed it, and I hope it, it touches a couple of people.
I'm sure it will.
Thanks.
All right. Well, you have a great rest of your evening.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.